Hey guys, so on the topic of nationalism, we are going to talk about nationalism in Germany, and we are going to look at the unification of Germany. And just as a reminder, nationalism is devotion to one's country and a want for one's country to be independent. So remember, think about Haiti, think about the Latin American revolutions. All these revolutions wanted to be free from foreign rule. They wanted to rule their own country, and they wanted to unite together based on, similar language, similar values, similar history. And we're going to see that case in Germany. Now, Germany at this time, so Germany before unification, just to give you guys an idea, it was divided up into many different states, so to call, okay? So we have Bavaria, which is its own state, ruled by a king. Hanover, which is ruled by a king from Britain, a foreign power. You have the areas up here ruled by Denmark. You have Prussia ruled by a different king. So you had all this territory. And in all of this territory, there were German-speaking people with a similar history, similar language, similar customs. So even though they were ruled by different kings and not one country, these people were all in this area and they were all the same. So it says right here, many foreign powers such as Britain and Denmark took over areas of territory in modern-day Germany. In these territories, there were many people who had the same German history and language, and who had a sense of nationalism and wanted to have a unified country. So all these people, because they were all the same, they're all German, they wanted a united country. So how did German unification begin? So in the early 1800s, German-speaking people lived in a number of small and medium-sized states, as well as in Prussia and Austria. Between 1807 and 1812, Napoleon made important territorial changes in German-speaking lands. He annexed lands along the Rhine River for France. He dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, which was an empire that took over the territory at that time, and organized a number of German states into the Rhine Confederation. At first, some Germans welcomed the French emperor as a hero with enlightened and modern policies. He encouraged freeing the serfs, which were, seen as almost slaves back then. They were for the medieval era. They had to work on land just to live on it and get protection. Made trade easier and abolished laws against Jews. However, not all Germans appreciated Napoleon's changes. As people fought to free their lands from French rule, they began to demand a unified Germany, or a unified German state. Because people didn't want to be ruled by foreign powers. They wanted to unite because they were the same and be one country. So I asked you to define annex. And annex, to start off with, is to take land over with force. So, for example, Napoleon annexed lands along the Rhine River for France. So, annex means to take over. We're going to see that word annex when we look over Italy and Germany unification. Next question was, what were the positive effects of Napoleon's takeover of Prussia? So, people liked him because he had enlightened modern policies, which, in essence, gave people more power and say, encouraged freeing the serfs, made trade easier, and abolished laws against Jews. So that's how he was seen positively. But then I ask you, for number 3, which is important, what is an example of nationalism in here? So where is this definition here? And the definition pretty much comes from the fact that the people fought for their land because they did not want to be ruled by a foreign power. And the German people wanted one nation that represents them. They wanted one unified nation. So that's nationalism. If you look at the definition again, it's to join together, sorry, wrong one. It's devotion to one's country and a want for one's country to be independent. So you guys can take some time to copy that. Pause the video now. Okay, so who was the leader of this unification? Who was the main person? And that was this guy called Otto von Bismarck. So let's read about it. Now, Germany became a modern unified nation under the leadership of Iron Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, who between 1862 and 1890 effectively ruled Prussia and then all of Germany. Bismarck believed that he should do whatever was necessary to unify the German states. This political philosophy became known as realpolitik. So the idea of realpolitik, guys, is just being realistic. You know, he wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. He wasn't going to make up lies or pretend, you know, something could be done. He was just realistic. He got right to the point. He wanted to do whatever was necessary to unify the German states, even if it was killing people in war. Bismarck believed that the German states should unify because all the people in these states had similar language, customs, race, and historic conditions. Following this policy, Bismarck militarized, which means increased the power of the military, the Prussian army and took over smaller German kingdoms by force. So he annexed them. So before we get to the map on the last page, which is mentioned here, let's just go over what the important stuff of this paragraph. So why did Bismarck look to unify all of Germany? He looked to unify all of them because the people in these states had similar language, customs, race, and historic conditions. A lot of people in these states were German, right guys? So because they had the similar background, they were practically the same people, they wanted to unite and come together as one nation instead of being ruled by different kings and different foreign powers. So how did Bismarck look to unify Germany? And he did this, you know, going with the real idea of realpolitik, you know, being realistic in the situation. He wanted to use force in his military. So Bismarck took over German kingdoms by force. He did this by militarizing the Prussian army, which means to make his army stronger. So he took that Prussian army. Now keep in mind, if we scroll up, Prussia is in the blue over here. So he was, as mentioned, one of the leaders of Prussia. And using his military, he began to take over all these German states to bring them together. So take some time and copy that down, and we'll get to the map. Okay, so we're just going to do a primary source read now, because it's always important to read the primary sources. But before we do that, before we get into activity 3, I just want to show you the map real quick. So here is the steps of unifying Germany. So it really started with Prussia, with the leadership of Otto von Bismarck, right? And then in the red, in 1866, it was annexed, so forcibly taken over by Prussia. So then they got more territory. Because again, remember guys, he wanted to take all this territory because there were German-speaking people, and he wanted to unite them. And then in the orange, we see that these territories joined Prussia in the North German Confederation. That's just a bunch of states, you know, or leaders of states who got together and agreed to let Otto von Bismarck take over. Then the South German states, right here in yellow, joined Prussia to form the German Empire. So even though Prussia initially annexed something, people in these areas were like, hey, you know, there's no reason to get taken over. We have German-speaking people in our countries, in our, you know, states. Let's combine and create one nation. And eventually this area called Lorraine, Alsace-Lorraine, was conquered by France. And that's going to be really important when we talk about World War I, World War II. But pretty much in this area, just for side knowledge, there's a lot of coal, and Germany really wanted this area because if you remember, during industrialization, coal was really needed. And just to show you this real quick, here's just a picture you're going to see on a test, right? And it's just Bismarck's German Empire. So the whole idea behind this cartoon was to build the foundation of Bismarck's German Empire. And to create this empire made of common language, custom, race, and historic traditions. And the way it was built was by these different things that happened. So the trade and tariff unions, the Danish War, Austro-Prussian War, North German Confederation, Franco-Prussian War, all these different things created the German Empire. All right, and real quick, let's talk about its primary source. So it says, blood and iron speech. Germany does not look to Prussia's liberalism, but to her power. The great question of the day, how can Germany be united, are not to be decided by speeches, but by blood and iron. Okay, so according to the quote, how does Bismarck believe Germany can be united? By blood and iron. And what does blood and iron mean? Well, guys, essentially, think about blood and iron. Iron represents the military. Blood represents sacrifice. So pretty much how he believes Germany can be united is through fighting and war. Okay, anytime you see blood and iron, it's just sacrifice and military. And that was the whole idea of realpolitik. He's being realistic. You know, he didn't think peace treaties would work. You had to fight for it. You had to annex. You had to fight wars just to get a united Germany. And then you guys are going to answer this on your own. Do you believe it displays a negative or positive outlook in nationalism? And this is all your opinion. So I hope this helped, guys. This is the unification of Germany.